Perhaps I complexify things. Is that a word? The truth is quite simple, that Ouspensky misinterpreted and misunderstood what Gurdjieff told him, and the Gurdjieff tradition has continued this misinterpretation and misunderstanding to create a completely different teaching to Gurdjieff's actual teaching. And this is made possible because of the publication of the book In Search of the Miraculous by Ouspensky, which is Ouspensky's account of Gurdjieff's teaching from Ouspensky's viewpoint, from Ouspensky's misinterpretation and misunderstanding. The 3 years that Ouspensky was a pupil of Gurdjieff between 1915 and 1921. Ouspensky misinterpreted and misunderstood Gurdjieff, and this misinterpretation and misunderstanding has been perpetuated and is now the Gurdjieff tradition, and has become the teaching ascribed, in fact, in the, shall we say, the ordinary mind of man. It has become the teaching ascribed to Gurdjieff, as if this is Gurdjieff's teaching, but it is actually a misinterpretation and misunderstanding by Ouspensky. So it's not that complex, what I'm saying, that there are two completely different teachings associated with the name of G.I. Gurdjieff. And the only complex facet of this is that it has taken me about 50 years to disentangle completely, in every aspect and at all levels, these two teachings, so that I can tell you either what is the Gurdjieff tradition coming from Ouspensky and perpetuated primarily by the book In Search of the Miraculous, or I can tell you what Gurdjieff's actual teaching is, what Gurdjieff wrote in his own book, The Tales of Beelzebub, to his grandson. So there are these two completely different teachings, and it is, in a sense, you might find it a little bit bizarre, but what I'm saying is that everything that is about Gurdjieff, even conferences about the All and Everything conference I've just been to here in Leeds, all this is about Ouspensky's misinterpretation and misunderstanding of Gurdjieff's teaching. It's not about Gurdjieff's teaching at all. You're asking for me to define the differences between these two things, these two teachings. So, if at a basic level, it's not that difficult. If we take the Gurdjieff tradition, so we're clear this comes from Ouspensky. This is not Gurdjieff's teaching. But the Gurdjieff tradition is saying that the ordinary man or woman can develop in the course of their life. And the development is by means of some sort of work upon oneself. And the development of the ordinary man or woman is, in fact, the development of their consciousness. And that's the Gurdjieff tradition. Now, if we take Gurdjieff's actual teaching is saying that the ordinary man and woman, in the course of their lives, cannot develop in any way. Any attempt to do so does not work and only makes our situation worse. So we can't develop in any way at all. This is Gurdjieff's teaching, his actual teaching. So, Gurdjieff is pointing out, a transformation is necessary before any individual development can take place. And this transformation is an energetic change. It is raising the whole level of the organism, the whole energetic level of the organism, to a much higher level. So we must raise the whole level of the organism energetically to a much higher level, at which point our own individual development can then begin. And Gurdjieff's teaching is this transformation, which he described to Ouspensky, and it's all there, all the information is there. He described it to Ouspensky as the stairway. From where does the way begin? Gurdjieff was asked, if we look at In Search of the Miraculous, Ouspensky's book, the way begins at a level much higher than the level of ordinary life. So our possibilities of developing as individuals along the way begin at a much higher level than ordinary life. Between ordinary life and the way, ordinary life at the low level that we are, and the way at the higher level, between these two things lies a stairway. This transformation that Gurdjieff is writing about. So Gurdjieff's teaching is this really. It is that there is a break in the chain of energetic production in us as ordinary men and women. We'll look at this later. But we don't have the energies we should have. We're not receiving the fruit of impressions as we should. And this, as I say, we'll explain later. Therefore, we fall to a very low energetic level. The level of ordinary men and women. It's a very low energetic level. The energetic background to our lives that should be there is not there. As a result of this, we fall into structures, internal structures. Man the machine, Gurdjieff spoke about, not man the operator of the machine. So we fall into internal structures from which we cannot emerge. We can't get out of them because we don't have the energies we should have. We shouldn't be in these structures. These structures should be, in a sense, independent of us, or we should be independent of these structures, but instead we've fallen into these structures and we're trapped in them. And as a result of this, a consequence of this, we have to form in ourselves, as ordinary men and women, an abnormal psychology. We have an abnormal life. And this is what Gurdjieff is saying. Therefore, if we're going to get out of these internal structures, if we're going to get out of this situation of living in an abnormal psychology, if we're going to get out of this, it's going to be by means of energies, raising the energetic level of the whole organism to the point where we can escape from these internal structures. We have an augmented energetic background to our lives, so we can escape from these internal structures, and our abnormal psychology can return to a normal psychology. We can establish in ourselves the background, the energetic background to a normal psychology. So that's Gurdjieff's teaching here. They're completely different teachings, even contradictory. Ouspensky's teaching, the Gurdjieff tradition, says we can develop, and we work on ourselves to try to develop ourselves. Gurdjieff says you can't develop in any way. How could you develop? And the crucial factor of this in terms of actual practice is that Ouspensky is saying we can develop by psychological means. Ouspensky is teaching psychology. Gurdjieff is not. If Gurdjieff mentions psychology, it's to point out that we have an abnormal psychology as a consequence of a structural situation that we've fallen into. So Gurdjieff is speaking about psychology to indicate the mechanics of the situation, the energetic situation, the structural situation, not the psychological situation, which is abnormal. And because our abnormal psychology is a consequence of a cause, that we are stuck in these internal structures, because our abnormal psychology is a consequence, we can't change it by psychological means, because the cause remains the same. So if we change our psychology, the cause remains the same, and the psychology will revert back to what it was, or even worse, because we've disrupted the harmony in us established over time as ordinary men and women. So we can't change ourselves by psychological means. It's not a psychological teaching, and this is Ouspensky's teaching. Ouspensky's teaching, the Gurdjieff tradition, is a psychological teaching. But Gurdjieff is, at the start, he said man the machine. He spoke of man the machine. We're studying man the machine, not man the operator of the machine. A machine is a complex device made by man in order to perform a specific function or functions, and it always has an operator. So Gurdjieff, by saying to Ouspensky at the start, we're studying man the machine, Gurdjieff is saying we're studying the machine, not the operator of the machine. We're studying structures, energies, processes, mechanics, not the operator of the machine, not psychology. So again, there is a division. The Gurdjieff tradition is studying psychology and working by means of psychology and psychological techniques. And this is completely wrong. This is not Gurdjieff's teaching. Gurdjieff's teaching is an energetic teaching about structures, the machine, that we have fallen into, and because of our low energetic state, we are trapped in these structures. And as a consequence of this, we have an abnormal psychology. We can't change the psychology by psychological means. So, there are two completely different teachings. There is a break in the chain of energetic production in us. So we don't have the energies that we should have. And in consequence of this, we fall to a very low energetic level as ordinary men and women. And we fall into structures from which we can't escape. Structural situations from which we can't escape. We can look at these later on. But we can't escape from these structures because we don't have the energies to do so. Because there is a break in the chain of energetic production in us. There is a break in the chain of energetic production in us, so we fall to a very low level. We don't have the energies we should have, and we're trapped, therefore, in internal structures. And we can't get out of them. And as a consequence of this, we have an abnormal psychology. We can't change our psychology by psychological means. We've got to change it by energetic means. We've got to produce the energies in us so that we can escape from these internal structures. And we can only produce the energies in us to escape from these internal structures if we rectify this break in the chain of energetic production in us. So what is this break in the chain of energetic production in us? Now, of course, there are two teachings ascribed to Gurdjieff. There is Ouspensky's teaching, which has become the Gurdjieff tradition. According to this teaching, according to Ouspensky's teaching, the Gurdjieff tradition, which is not Gurdjieff's teaching, the break in the chain of energetic production in us lies in the receipt of the food of impressions. We don't receive the food of impressions as we should. We don't digest the food coming from impressions. Now, this is, of course, a very strange idea for the ordinary man and requires a little bit of time to get used to. And paradoxically, in the light of what I'm saying, this is best explained in Ouspensky's teaching. That is, in a sense, it is made obvious in the context of the Gurdjieff tradition, because Ouspensky, in the book In Search of the Miraculous, shows two food diagrams. One food diagram is the depleted energetic state of the ordinary man, the first food diagram. The second food diagram shows an augmented, apparently augmented energetic situation. This is how we should be. This is the normal situation. This is, in fact, having spoken of Gurdjieff's actual teaching as a transformation, Gurdjieff spoke to Ouspensky about this as a stairway. We have the two food diagrams, one indicating our energetic state at the start of this transformation, the other indicating the energetic state we should have, which is the energetic state at the end of the transformation. The energetic background to an ordinary man. It appears an augmented energetic state. What is the difference? It is the receipt of the food of impressions. Food that Ouspensky claims requires a first conscious shock. And we're going to go into this, and we can look at this over a long period of time to show that Ouspensky's idea is that to properly digest the food of impressions, we need in ourselves a first conscious shock. Now, this is completely false. It is a mythological idea that Ouspensky has invented, based upon his interpretation of what Gurdjieff told him. Now, I've explored this idea and shown that there is no such thing as a first conscious shock. However, there is still a break in the chain of energetic production in us. This is the reality of the situation. Ouspensky's explanation of it is that we require a first conscious shock at this point, and this is incorrect. This is the Gurdjieff tradition ascribed to Gurdjieff, but it's not what Gurdjieff says, and it's not true. There is a break in the chain of energetic production in us. Gurdjieff is quite clear at the start of his own book, The Tales of Beelzebub, to his grandson, why. He says we have an excellently working automatism for perceiving all kinds of new impressions. So, food of impressions, new impressions, perception, come from perception. And why do we not digest this food of impressions? Because we have an excellently working automatism for perceiving all kinds of new impressions. So the break in the chain of energetic production in Gurdjieff's actual teaching concerns perception. And we find in the book, The Tales of Beelzebub, to his grandson, Gurdjieff is writing again and again about perception, perception, perception. Whereas in the Gurdjieff tradition, everything is skewed, misunderstood, misinterpreted towards ideas about consciousness, which is not Gurdjieff's teaching. So there is a break in the chain of energetic production in us. So we don't receive the energies we should, specifically energies coming from the food of impressions. And the reason for this is that we have this excellently working automatism for perceiving all kinds of new impressions. So the break in the chain of energetic production comes from an automatic perception. So at some point, if we're going to raise the energetic level of the whole organism in this transformation, we're going to have to deal with this break in the chain of energetic production in us. We're going to have to deal with the fact that we don't digest the food of impressions as we should. And the reason is that these food of impressions come from perception, and we have an excellently working automatism for perceiving. So we're going to have to work at perception. And of course we don't know how to do this. We don't know anything about perception. Indeed, the ordinary man takes his perception of the world as if that is the world. There's no doubt about it. How he sees the world, in any sense of this term, that's the way the world is. But of course it isn't. It's much, much bigger than that, much more complex, much more vivid, much more intense than that. So there is a sense in which we've got to wake up to this fact, wake up to this experience even, that our perception of the world is not a given. It's not. It is the way the world is. I was going to say that. It's not the way the world is, but it is the way the world is. But it's only a very small part of that. It's a small part of a much bigger thing. And the fact that we have this automatic perception means that we take our perception, our experience of the world, as if that is the world, that is the way the world is. And of course it isn't. Our perception is not a given. Our experience of the world is not a given. We can change it. We can make it more vivid, more intense. And this is how it should be. The world should be much more colourful than our actual experience of it. And it isn't more colourful, in inverted commas, if you like, because we have this excellently working automatism for perceiving all kinds of new impressions. Now, we don't know how to change perception as ordinary men and women, but we know how to do it because we can be told techniques that will allow us, firstly, to disrupt this excellently working automatism. Even to bypass this excellently working automatism for perceiving, eventually coming to a point where we can actually overcome this excellently working automatism for perceiving all kinds of new impressions. And we do receive the food of impressions as we should, and we can remedy this break in the chain of energetic production in us and gradually raise the energetic level of the whole organism, the transformation that Gurdjieff writes about, to the point where we can escape from these inner structures in which we are trapped. And once we can do that, then our psychology changes. We have the energetic background to a normal psychology, and our abnormal psychology, as it is now, as ordinary men and women, can start to change to become normal. We can establish in ourselves a normal psychology, the psychology we should have, as we should be. And at that point, and Gurdjieff writes, only at that point can our own individual development actually begin.